Okay, welcome everybody to this week's meeting. Continuing to talk about the servant of God, Luisa Piccarreta. We'll just end with, or we'll start actually where we left off last time, where somebody had asked about the office of nurse. And so we'll talk a little bit, dive a little bit more into her office of nurse. That's where we will start, and then we'll continue with the life of Luisa Piccarreta.
Okay, from the excerpt from April 23, 19,000, which is titled Resignation is Oil That Salves, we read, I saw that an oil was coming out of me, says Luisa. I took it and I salved the wounds of Jesus, but with some concern, for I did not understand what the meaning of that oil was coming out of me. But blessed Jesus made me understand that resignation to the divine will is oil, which, while salving and mitigating our pains, at the same time salves and mitigates the spasms of the wound of Jesus. Then, after performing this office of nurse for my dear Jesus for quite a while, he disappeared and I came back into myself. So the office was finished with this oil that means resignation. This is how Luisa did the office of nurse.
Great.
Go ahead.
Guadalupe, can you give the lecture again, please?
April 23, 19,000.
100.
1900.
Thank you.
It is in the volume 3,
Thank you.
paragraph 33.
So now we're just going to continue with the best office that Luisa did. And number 1 was we read it from volume 12, February 10th, 1919, is to accept to live in his will. This is the best office she had. The next one was to know what his divinity inflicted on his humanity. We also read from the same volume, volume 12, for March 2nd, 1921, that he changes her office from office of victim to that of preparing the era of his will. And from volume 15th, April 28th, 1923, she completes, the complete triumph of the creator of the over the creature. Jesus transplants his divine will in Luisa, and she asks him to guard and to love her. So this is one of her best offices that she had. And the last one is from volume 19, May 18th, 1926, that the capital that Luisa receives is the work of creation, redemption, and sanctification, and she is as responsible and guarantor of the divine will. And this is everything. She receives absolutely everything from the merits, all of it from the works of creation, redemption, and sanctification. So I wanted the emptiness of everything in your soul to be able to extend my heaven. So much talk about the virtues that I told you were stars that practiced by you in the way I wanted. I made use of them to adorn the heaven that I had extended in you. So I wanted to make reparation in you and to remake myself for all that the human family had done wrong and unworthy, in order to call the son of my divine fiat. It was necessary to prepare with decorum the one who was to receive for the first time the life of my divine will. And this is from volume 27, February 6, 1930. And now we're going to see some of the tests that Luisa had to go through, and she actually conquered them all as well. So the first one being obedience. Second one is love of suffering, being a perpetual victim. Ex officio, of the penalties imitating Jesus. So basically, because of the role she had taken on, imitating Jesus in every absolute uh, phase that he went through, she also had to endure the penalties, like, for example, like humiliation. The next one is abnegation. The next one is patience, fidelity. Uh, some of the prodigies that she had to overcome, and she did, was, not having any food consumption. So if she ate, she returned everything whole and intact with aroma. And little sleep and deprivation of Jesus. Was twice painful for her, not only because of the deprivation itself of not having him or not seeing him in the 3D version that she would always see him, but because she also was detached from everything that she had, that everything, every human, every material, detachment, and the only thing that she had left was Jesus. So that was the twice painful for her. And the next one is predictions that were fulfilled at the time. So some of the predictions that were fulfilled at the time, for one example, for example, was the war between Italy and Africa. And Jesus used this to show the confessor what Luisa said actually came from him. And there's obviously others as well, but they're still continuing as well. So a little bit of the timeline of the extraordinary life of Luisa. It started when she was between 3 and 11 years old, and she started with attacks from the devil. She would hear the voice of Jesus when she was 12. She had her first vision of Jesus carrying the cross when she was 13. The first time she was bedridden was at 16. And so she kept on being tormented by demons when she was between 16 and 20. She offered herself as victim for the cholera at 22, and her first recovery of her usual state, right, when she would go into this usual, what she would call the usual state. She had this first experience when she was 22, and she became a Dominican tertiary at 23, and then she got permanently bedridden at age 40 at 43. And then if we continue with her timeline here, at 23, she actually experienced her first wedding on earth. She received this gift when she was 23 years old and 7 months. And then she had her second wedding when she was 25 years old. And then she had, then in between those first two weddings, she started writing her experiences with Jesus when she was 34 years old. Then she had her third wedding in the cross, where she received the stigmata, the crown of thorns, and she was 35 at the time. And then lastly, when she was 35 years old and 9 months, she experienced she had her fourth wedding in the divine will, in the center of divine will, and she lives with the heart of Jesus. And those first four weddings and the initial writing of her experiences with Jesus, that was a 12-year period. So between 1888 and 1900. And then after that, it was opening up the divine will. She accepts the divine will at age 54. And then Jesus changes her office from victim soul to preparing the era of divine will. And then Jesus transplants his divine will to Luisa at 58 years old. And then at 61 years old, she's now the responsible and guarantor of the divine will. Guadalupe, did you want to add anything?
And yeah, here just to mention that everything that Jesus did with Luisa was to prepare her for giving the divine will. But we should to look at in this diagram that this started when she was 54 years old. And the years later, the Lord was giving Luisa little by little until she named guarantor of the divine will when she was 63 years old. What I mean is that at first were the weddings and all the preparation that we know. And after all of this, the Lord was started to give her the divine will gifts little by little. So for us, it's a big gift because we have all the gift of divine will consolidated in the book of heaven. This didn't happen to Luisa. And the other data that is important is that in 1928, exactly when she was 33 years old, in the volume 25, paragraph 1 from October 7, 1928, the Lord says that is the beginning of the kingdom, which is very important to have it in mind. You can continue.
Mhm. So we're going to be looking at the writings of Luisa. So in total, she wrote more than 10,000 pages. What we see now, or what we know as the 36 volumes of the Book of Heaven. She also wrote the 24 Hours of the Passion of our Lord Jesus Christ. And at the same time, she was writing volume 11 and 12. And she also wrote the Queen of Heaven, the Nativity Novena, her childhood memories, the Rounds of a Soul, 70 letters to Saint Hannibal de Francia, 239 letters to various addressees. She also wrote the Three Appeals, and then also various books that were not edited anymore, and we don't know at this time what they are. So this is and then you'll see here on the right-hand side a page of the manuscript of Luisa dated in 1899, February 28th, 1899, written in obedience to her confessor, Don Gennaro, Father Gennaro de Gennaro, who was the parish priest of the Church of St. Joseph in Corrado. Okay, then in 1899, at age 34, Luisa was told by her confessor as to start writing all her experiences with Jesus, which she did unwillingly because she actually she didn't like to receive the attention. And at age 73, she finished this mission. In total, she dedicated 39 years of her life, and it said that she wrote at night. And then the result was a book of the 36 volumes, which we know now, where Jesus himself gave the title to St. Hannibal de Francia, The Kingdom of the Divine Will in the Midst of Creatures, Book of Heaven, the call to mankind to return to the order, to the place, and to the purpose for which it was created by God. And we can read about that in volume 19, August 27th, 1926. In 1915, when she was 50, St. Hannibal de Francia published the first edition of the 24 Hours of the Passion, which was actually censored on behalf of the Archdiocese of Trani. In 1926, St. Hannibal de Francia ordered Luisa to write some memoirs about her childhood and adolescence, which became part of the Book of Heaven, Volume 1, which we read in Volume 1. And before 1927, the first 19 volumes of the Book of Heaven and the 24 Hours of the Passion had already obtained the nihil obstant, that St. Hannibal de Francia, and the imprimatur from the Archbishop of Trani. A pain for Luisa and for the Lord. So according to the Book of Heaven, the harassment began in 1930. The first misunderstandings arose, and the first alert by the Sacred Congregation of the Holy Office in the Vatican about the presumed financial gain to Luisa Piccarreta from the publications, and also the question of the need for a priest to free her from her usual state, and culminating with the confiscation. This culminated with the confiscation of her writings in 1938. Her biographers agree in calling the confiscation of her writings a terrible storm. And the inquiry of the Holy Office, pursuant to further concerns, reached its peak in 1938 as well, and led to two unexpected and painful acts. The first was in May with the requisition of the 34 handwritten notebooks of Luisa's diary by the Carmelite Father Lorenzo of Saint Basilio, theologian of the Apostolic Datary. That was one of the offices in Roman Curia. And from the Vatican, they sent this priest to do the requisition. The routine process was not followed, so the priest didn't inform the Archbishop of Trani, neither interviewed the confessor. He came directly to Luisa's house. He took all the books that Luisa had, except for the original manuscript of volumes 35 and the beginning of 36 that Luisa had under the mattress. The second was in July, when the Holy Office ordered the registration of the publications in the list of prohibited books. On September 11th, the Observatore Romano reported the decree that in an attached article explained the reasons for the sentence of excessive mysticism.
Here, we need to mention that Luisa saw one of the girls who was learning with her to sew, that she was reading the books. So that's why she started to put the books under the mattress for not other people to be looking at them. You can continue.
Mm-hmm. So from the transcription of the Decree of the Holy Office from August 31st, 1938, they condemned and obliged to place in the index of the prohibited books the books that we mention here. The first one is the Hours of the Passion of our Lord Jesus Christ, with the Treatise on the Divine Will. The second one being the Kingdom of the Divine Will. And the third is the Queen of Heaven in the Kingdom of the Divine Will. So the reason for the confiscation of the three of Luisa's writings was not officially recorded by the Holy Office. L'Osservatore Romano is the daily newspaper of the Vatican City-State, which reports on the activities of the Holy See and events taking place in the Catholic Church and the world. It only reported the confiscation and that three of the books were placed on the index of banned books. Also, it did not mention cause, and the next edition of L'Observatore mentioned that it could be motivated by excessive mysticism. Please take note that none of the volumes of the Book of Heaven appear in the official listing, neither in Luisa's answer. So she actually did respond to this. So this is a transcript of the answer of Luisa. So she said, I spontaneously and promptly fulfill the duty of a Christian soul to express my unconditional, prompt, full, and absolute submission to the judgment of the Holy Roman Church, by which, without any restriction, I reprove and condemn whatever the Supreme Congregation of the Holy Office reproves and condemnation in the aforementioned published writings, in the sense that the Supreme Congregation itself understands. So if I understand correctly, she was not reproving the actual context of the material that she wrote. It was actually the prologues that were written for the books.
Yeah. Now some of the biographers mention that the problem was the interpretation of the prologue of the priest who helped her to edit the books, the 24 Hours of the Passion and the Queen of Heaven. Because it is said now that some part of the prologue have some theological questions that the Vatican didn't agree, but they didn't mention too. So up to now, we have three probably causes, as we have mentioned in the slides before. One was related to the loyalties that Luisa was receiving as a payment, which was not like this at all. And the other is that they didn't agree with her having the mass at her house. And this third one that is related to the prologues that was written for the editors who were Saint Hannibal de Francia in one, and in the other one, her last confessor. You may continue.
Mm-hmm. So of the books they said were listed in the index, one was edited and published by Saint Hannibal de Francia, so the 24 Hours, and the other by her confessor, Father Benedetto Calvi, the Queen of Heaven. So none of them were directly edited by Luisa herself. The 24 Hours was also edited in German. Other editions of the same book have been published with full ecclesiastic approval, even as late as 1997. So take note that never did any of the volumes of Book of Heaven appear in the official list of the decree of the Holy Office. They were confiscated, but they were never mentioned in the decree and never indexed, but were kept with the rest of the confiscated books. So the documents were stored without being registered in the Vatican archives for almost 60 years, until they were made accessible to the tribunal for the cost of beatification of Luisa on February 2nd, 1996, which is the feast of the presentation. The photo here shows them as they were found, here on the right-hand side, covered and everyone due named. So they were named by their volumes, I believe. In the cover paper, it can be read Piccarreta. The group who opened the packages after 60 years found that all the pages with the nihil obstant were torn, except the one in volume 12, which we have until this day. This nihil obstant was signed October 12, 1926, by the Canonicus Hannibal de Francia, and the imprimatur by Giuseppe Maria Leo, Archbishop, October 16, 1926. And note that the same Supreme Congregation of the Holy See for the Faith that in the time of H. Pius XI condemned 3 of the books in 1938 is the same congregation under the leadership of Cardinal Ratzinger and the approval of John Paul II that abolished the condemnation in 1994. So about the loss of part of the volumes in 1929. So we read actually in volume 25 where Jesus actually tells us what he suffered. And so we'll read from March 17th, 1929. If you only knew how much I suffer, and so many deaths for us, many truths as they were inside. And he says, but they will repay me with so much more fire in purgatory for how many truths they have misplaced. And here from the transcript of the notification and pontificate of Paul VI on the abolition of the list of prohibited books from June 14th, 1966, it says that, however, it no longer has the force of ecclesiastical law with the censures annexed to it.
So we present that just to emphasize that nowadays it is not important if a book is or not in the list of prohibited books because it has no force for ecclesiastical law. And now knowing that no book of heaven was in the index, we can be more relaxed reading the books. We are not transgressing anything in the church.
Okay. So I'll continue about the writings, what the Book of Heaven says. So this is from 1930 to 1931. So from volume 28, November 30th, 1930, they think that I am a distant God. From volume 28, February 8th, 1931, they did not have the strength to write this page, the most painful page of my existence here below. A pack of dogs have surrounded me to tear me to pieces and devour me. Because of the divine will, they accuse me in the holy office of things that I do not know. I have lived in bed for 40 years. I am a poor person buried in life. I do not remember ever having had love of interest. My sweet Jesus has always watched over my heart and has kept it in complete detachment. Jesus in the same reading tells Luisa, if you knew what pain they have given to my heart, I am obliged to strike all those who have contributed to such a black accusation and do not think that I will do it properly today. And Luisa continues, as if I had become the most infamous creature that exists on earth, and a curse rains down on my poor existence. And then we read from volume 29, February 15th, 1931. But I feel the fire that burns me from the many storms that are falling on my poor existence. That is why my pain is indescribable when I see myself displeased by the creatures, by how much authority they have in the ways that I want to have with souls. They want to impose the laws on me as if they understood them better than I do. And from volume 29, March 1931. Pain, it is so great that I can say that in all the history of the world, I have never received a similar pain from creatures. Seeing the indifference of some, and you know who they are, as if they had not done nothing to me, increases my pain and obliges my justice to continue sending scourges. And from volume 29, April 2nd, 1931, how can it be possible that for 4 or 5 persons who have wished to do evil, I should send so many punishments? Continuous and terrible scourges during the time that you have been free from your customary pains. So some events that occurred in 1931. There were 9 earthquakes in Mexico, Burma, New Zealand, Manawa, Armenia, Azerbaijan, um, the North Sea, China, Texas, Sumatra, and there was also a tsunami. In the USSR, the government orders the mobilization of agricultural specialists to work free of charge for 2 months on collectivized farms. Unemployment in Spain rises to 150,000 workers. The Second Republic is installed, and King Alfonso VIII flees for fear of civil war. Temperatures in Africa rise over 50 degrees Celsius or 131 Fahrenheit in July, and the floods from July to December of the Yangtze, Yellow, and Green Canal rivers of China will leave some 4 million dead and 23 million people affected. The waters reach a height of 16 meters. In September, a hurricane in Belize killed 2,500 people. And 2 days later, a cyclone killed 700 people. And the Japan-China seizes Manchuria in September. And in November, China is proclaimed Soviet. In December, military and caudillo governments begin in El Salvador until 1974. And in Russia, Stalin orders the destruction of the Basilica of Christ the Savior. So from volume 36, September 18,
Sorry,
1938,
can I
in
ask a
view of,
question?
yes.
Yeah, it is for Guadalupe. Like the events that were on 1931, those were the events that were after Luisa's writings were taken from her, right? Is that right?
Yeah, is that right? And it is not added here that in 1932 the Second World War started, except 1 year, almost 1 year later of after this event. So this is trying to show how Jesus reacted because of this thing of the confiscation of the books.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
So from volume 36, September 18, 1938, in view of the confiscation, humiliations of the most humiliating and like a poor condemned woman. And my dear daughter, if you only knew how much I suffer, if I were to let you see it, you would die of grief. You must know that it is not you they have condemned, but me together with you. I feel that my condemnation is renewed. So some events in 1938. And January 25th at night, a more intense than usual aurora borealis, which can be seen as far as Gibraltar, is seen all over the northern part of the planet. January 27th, that Niagara Bridge over Niagara Fall collapses due to ice. January 30th, formation in Burgos, Spain, of the first national government of Spain from 1938 and 1939, in which Francisco Franco officially assumes the post of head of state and government. A strong 8.6 earthquake is recorded in Banda Sea, causing a destructive tsunami. February 4th, in Germany, Hitler proclaims himself supreme commander of the armed forces. On February 6th, 300 swimmers are swept into the ocean by 3 waves at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. Between 80 lifeguards managed to save and revive all but 5. March 12th, Germany invades Austria and proclaims the Ausschluss or annexation by Chancellor Adolf Hitler. March 16th, beginning of 3 days of bombing of the civilian population of Barcelona by the rebels in the Civil War, causing more than 1,000 deaths. On June 24th, a 450-ton meteoroid explodes 20 kilometers above the U.S. city of Kikora in Pennsylvania. September 21st, the Great New England Hurricane of 1938 makes landfall on Long Island, New York, with a Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, sweeping across the northeastern United States. On October 2nd, in Tiberias, Palestine, in the framework of the Palestinian Revolt that lasted between 1936 and 1939, 7 armed Arabs, Palestinians, stabbed 19 Jewish civilian immigrants, 11 of whom were children. So this is known as the Tiberias Massacre. And the November 9th, in Germany, during the night of November the 9th through the 10th, the Nazis perpetrate the Night of Broken Glass. 91 Jews are killed, 267 synagogues are burned, 7,500 establishments are destroyed, and 25,000 Jewish men are arrested. And on December 22nd in Berlin, Otto Hahn, director of chemistry at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, and his team achieved the first nuclear fusion in history. So now we're going to talk about the miracles that the Lord performed through Luisa, according to testimonies collected by Father Bucci. And in volumes 1 through 258 and 260, she offers herself as victim. In volume 1, she offers herself as victim for the salvation of a soul Jesus showed her that was shot to death and went to hell when he died. Luisa was in great suffering around 1 hour. The result was that they thought the man was dead. However, he was declared very ill. Little by little, he recovered until and he was actually alive. So he did not die. So there's a summary of the testimonies of the miracles during Luisa's life. Epileptic. This was who it was Rosaria Bucci. Her mother took her to Luisa, and from the day until the end of her life, she did not convulse again. A crippled hand, again from Rosaria Bucci. She had accidental mutilation of 4 fingers on her left hand, and yet she was a quick embroiderer. She was Luisa's assistant. Cancerous sores, again, it was Rosaria Bucci. She had sores that a doctor classified as a kind of leprosy. And after the doctor, she went to Luisa, who reproached her for not seeking God first. They prayed together, and the next morning her injuries were healed. And the almost drowned was Giuseppe Bucci, wanting to save a comrade who got into rough seas. As they beat against the rocks and were not able to swim, he invoked Luisa, asking her to save him, and he would become a priest. The bishop cured. So Monsignor Giovanni Regime, so he signed a decree of the Archbishop forbidding Mass in Luisa's house. He left with partial paralysis. He asked to go to Luisa by signing. They took him between two priests. Upon seeing him, Luisa asked him for blessing, and at that moment he was able to raise his arm and complete the blessing. He was cured. Needless to say, he became a visitor of Luisa's and Luisa's confessor at that time and was able to act calmly. A failed soldier. So this person was Francisco, Father Bucci's younger brother. So the Bucci family had gone from well-to-do to almost destitute. The younger brother's work was important, but he was going to be conscripted for war. Her mother forced Aunt Rosaria to go to Luisa, who reproached her for not telling her, confirming that she already knew, but that he was not going to go to war. For 3 years, he was called up for the draft, and his neck always swelled. He was sent for medical examination again, and his entry into the army was postponed. The resurrected baby, Luigi, the son of Serafina, sister-in-law of Rosaria Bucci. The mother with the dead child went to Luisa, put him on her lap. Luisa tells her what you do is to take the child to suckle. The young parents left the child at home and went to see the play Rigoletto. When they returned, the child was suffocated. Testified by Benedetta Magione, one of the young women who went to learn sewing at Luisa's house. And difficult childbirth. Luisa's younger sister, whom she herself changed her name from Giuseppina to Gemma. She had uterine bleeding from the second birth. The doctor considered that the case was already lost and withdrew. They managed to bring Luisa's blouse who had already died, and put it on her pillow, as a pillow, and the doctor's assistant asked permission to operate on her. They had a blood donor on hand, and Gemma was saved, although the child died of pneumonia the day after the birth. And another miracle was the tumor of the head, Nuncia's mother. So the young Nuncia goes to Luisa's house to beg for her mother, but Luisa does not receive her because she says, "What I can do is to pray for her and for that she does not need to see me." In addition, he sends Nuncia to go to the temple and do the 40 hours, which the young woman did not want to do. Aunt Rosaria tells her to do what Luisa said, and so Nuncia was in the church for about 2 hours. When she returns home, she finds her mother bathed in blood that came out of her nose. She was cured. They wanted to see Luisa to thank her, and she refused to receive them because she said nothing to do with it and told them, "Let them go and thank the Lord for the grace they have received." The cured horse, he was vital to Luisa's family. So the horse got sick when Luisa was a child, and they wouldn't let her see the animal because she loved it so much. And Luisa was able to get the animal and told him, "Don't die because I love you very much." At these words, the horse rose as if nothing had happened, testimony of the centenary of Corrado. The stolen furniture from the house museum in memory of Luisa. While at a congress in Costa Rica, they learned of the theft of the furniture in the house museum. They warned everyone or everywhere that demons could be in those pieces of furniture, and they returned them a few days later by putting them behind the front door. And the resurrected young man, there's no other information about this young man, but the young man was found in a pool of blood. The mother, when she found out about it, the first thing she did was to go knock on the door of Luisa's house and shout, "Luisa, they have killed my son." It is related that Luisa said to the mother, "Go and pick up your son, and the Lord will give him back to you." There are several testimonies, and this one in the letters of St. Hannibal de Francia, who attributes the resurrection of the young man to the prayers of Luisa. And the letter is dated May 5th, 1927. And her death, her last confessor, Father Benedetto Calvi, was with Luisa during her final hours and recalls her words named in her testament. "So now I die more content because the divine will has consoled me more than usual with your presence in these last moments of my life. I see now a long, beautiful, and spacious road, illuminated by infinite and resplendent suns. Oh yes, I know them. They are the sons of my acts done in the divine will. It is the path that I must now travel. It is the path prepared for me by the divine will. It is the way of my triumph. It is the way of my glory. to join the immense happiness of the divine will. It is my way. It is the way that I will reserve for you, dear Father. It is the way which I will reserve for all souls who want to live in the divine will. And from volume 11, June 23rd, 1912, the soul who lives in the will is not subject to death and receives no judgment. His life is eternal. So Luisa died at the age of 81, 10 months and 11 days on the early morning of March 4th, 1947, at the hour of her daily wake, after 15 days of illness, the only serious illness certified in her life, which was pneumonia, severe pneumonia. Her burial took place on March 7th, 1947, in order to appease the crowd. All this time before the burial, the people came massively to pay tribute to her. Her confessor reported that she did not develop rigor mortis. Her limbs moved and her eyelids could be open and her eyes looked fresh. She looked alive, as if she were sleeping. She didn't develop cadaveric odor. A medical board had to certify her death, as they believed she might be in her usual state. They had a special urn for her with glass and wood, as can be seen in the photograph here on top. Because they couldn't make her lay down on her back, her burial was a grandiose one, and that day was a holiday for everybody, including farmers and workers. Everybody wanted to be in the funeral procession, and the nuns of the congregation around Corrado took turns carrying the urn. The list of turns was prepared for the priest Calvi, in order to give the same privileges to all, including the nuns of the divine zeal. Um, Luisa was declared servant of God in 1948. In 1948, Archbishop Reginaldo Giuseppe Maria Adazzi gave Luisa the title Servant of God. And this is the stamp that commemorates the designation of the Servant of God in 1948 with the imprimatur of Archbishop Rinaldo Adazzi with a relic. Her first tomb was in the city cemetery in the private chapel of the family of her last confessor for 20 years, Don Benedetto Calvi. Her remains were transferred to St. Mary of Greca Church in Corrado on July 3rd, 1967. This was obtained thanks to Rosario Bucci's actions. She visited the Congregation of Faith in Rome, and she was transferred that had all ecclesiastical permits. So it was a transfer that had all the ecclesiastical permits. The medallion on the mausoleum has a face of Luisa, and her death surrounded by a pile of books. In her right hand, there is a pen and a spare one over her hand. The crucifix that infuses with his rays on her heart and her hands. On the top of the word, and then on the top it says Fiat and the two hearts.
Well, we will finish this presentation of today here, and there are two things that I want to add. The first one is related to this medallion that should be added, that in her left hand, it shows that Luisa has a rosary. I went through the picture to look with the 10x glasses to find out all the things that are written, and it's obvious that there is a rosary at her hand. And the other part that I wanted to mention is that I will ask Paula to tell us something that she has related to the 66 slide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just actually mentioning it before we started the meeting today. I was mentioning to Guadalupe that I actually have this same relic card, this same prayer card. It was actually given to me as a gift by this lady who's in a prayer group that I'm in, and she actually gave me this card. So I actually have an original of this relic card. And I was also telling her that it was really funny that, well, it wasn't funny, but at the time, today, I actually had left it behind in the church. And I actually drove before even my lunch break, I drove over there and I had to pick it up. But Guadalupe also let me know that I should probably not be carrying it around, that I should probably have it in my house safe. So, but
Yeah,
yes, I did.
because it's a treasure that we didn't know some of us had. Well, thank you very much for your attention. And if there is any question, you
Well,
can write it or tell it today.
yeah, I want to share a little something. Um, happened that I well, I when Dr. Salvador came the first time to Phoenix back in the, I don't know, 2 years and a half or so, he brought with him some pictures of Luisa. Okay, and even though I heard about Luisa, I never put attention or never thought about her physical appearance, and I'm called to do that with saints, right? But with Luisa, I never crossed, her image. So long story short, I lost it. And he sold some pictures. Well, he not sold, but he brought some pictures, and we give donate a donation. And then I found it just like 5 days ago, after 2 years that I lost it, and it's this one, and it's from Colorado, and just I wanted to share this one,
Very nice.
even if I can scan it. And this is one of the pictures and I asked, Martha, if she had some pictures, and they said no. And so I'm gonna try to scan it and share it, if anybody wants to have this kind
Okay.
of picture.
Okay, thank you. I have a question to you. You
Sure.
see in her hand the rosary or the crucifix of Dominican Tertiary?
It's kind of blurry over here.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And
it looks
exact
like her Dominican tertiary, how can I say it? Medallion.
Yeah. I was wondering if it was the frivoli the thing that she used to make, to work, or the rosary, or her glasses. So, but I'm gonna scan it and see if
It is the
the
is
medallion.
the medallion that they gave her.
Oh,
She used to have pictures of her with that, or sometimes with the rosary.
okay. I'm gonna scan it for.
Yeah, thank you, we appreciate.
Thank you.
And I said the same to Paula, because what I show you is one scanned image of the car that was given when she was named servant of God. And it has every stamp that they did, it has a piece of her dresses, a piece of her of her flowers or something that they have. So if Paula has it, I told her that this is it's a primary relic that she has, because directly has a part of the dress of Luisa.